Yeah, I always have to flip the symposium around because they're looking at the science of gender, and I'm so used to being a gender in science. So it's a different thing. So I have to like take a step back and do science of gender.
I might be biased because I'm a scientist. I think it's great, like a gender symposium, bring in the perspective from sciences, right? Sex, gender, and how we see those issues, of course, shaped by many things.
What does it really mean to be a woman or a man or something in between or none of those, you know? I mean, why are there these limitations of gender, and how can I think outside of that or cross boundaries, and how much does my gender really pertain to who I am and what my identity is?
I think even taking the scientific perspective on gender and sex it feels kind of like a dangerous thing. I mean, you get into all sorts of fun debates like, are girls not as good at math? I mean, isn't it Larry Summers who launched that one at Harvard a few years ago, right? So is there a scientific reason why girls perform weaker at the higher levels in mathematics? So you hit that immediately as soon as you start asking these questions. And if we don't talk about these things, how in the world are we going to either dispel myths or use data to argue effectively against the question? So I think it's a really interesting and really dangerous topic to bring up, and I'm glad they're doing it. I think it's really interesting.
A lot of psychology's take on it is sort of this battle between the nature versus nurture. You know, is it chemically hardwired into our brains, or is it something that we learn from our parents as we grow up? This has been an issue for me for a long time because I'm trans, and had to sort of work through that because on one hand, I'm not biologically, I wasn't born biologically male, but on the other hand, there was something in my head that was telling me, despite a female upbringing, that something wasn't right, and that I needed to be outwardly a man. So and I think a newer psychological approach is finally sort of melding the two and saying, well, they do interact. We don't really know how, but it's clearly not one or the other.
I think that, the gender issue is not so simple, clear-cut. As I said, even in terms of sex organs, it's not clearly, neatly fell into the male line or female line. And I think we should stop thinking about gender-related issues like gender role and gender identity, and in dichotomies. It's more kind of a continuum rather than dichotomy. Another thing is, I think we should stop trying and worrying about, am I whether typical male or typical female, and very often those, narrowly defined blocks, it's recent and arbitrary anyway.
I think it's a question that I struggle with a lot, and I've heard so many people say different things, that it doesn't matter at all, that gender is this entirely socially constructed idea, that it's something we learn throughout society, and that it's not truly attached to any physical characteristics. And I would say that is more along the lines of my experience, but there are people that feel completely differently. And I mean, we have bodies for a reason, and they are gendered, but it's a very complicated issue.